Our story begins on a destroyed street, where a man named Kim Hyun-tae lifts his huge flaming sword and swings it down with a thunderous crash. Once again, Hyun-tae raises his sword and uses his meteor smash skill, further devastating the street. He is baffled, however, when our protagonist, Yoo Ji-han, asks if that was all he had, infuriating Hyun-tae. Blaring at Ji-han with anger, Ji-han simply and calmly tells him that it's now his turn. He then slashed Hyun-tae, and this was the story of our protagonist Ji-han, an expelled hero. One day, many of Earth's plants and animals transformed into monsters, and invaders arrived from different dimensions. The world was plunged into an era of great chaos. Amidst this turmoil, a man begs for help as a monster approaches him. Just as the creature is about to bite the man to death, someone slices the monster in half. To combat these threats, humanity formed guilds, groups of heroes with special powers. The field boss, Godor, screams in rage and lifts its axe. Fortunately, the man blocks the attack. Kiro's guild's tanker, Hwang Junho, questions why it is so strong. Junho tries his best to hold off Godor, but when it swings its other axe, he panics knowing he can't block it. Just in time, Ji-han, who was once merely a supporter in the Kiro's guild, manages to intercept the attack. Struggling to hold on, he shouts to their other member to act. Im Seon, the magician of Kiro's guild positioned behind Godor, responds that she is ready. She unleashes her burning thunder skill, electrocuting Godor and causing a powerful explosion. As Seon lands, she arrogantly asks Godor if it enjoyed that and declares that there's no way it can survive her burning thunder. But Godor screams loudly and charges at Seon. Fortunately, Jen jumps and pushes her down just in time to avoid the attack. Seon is surprised, but Jen remains focused on Godor, incredulous that it sustained no damage from the spell. He knows they've bought enough time. The main damage dealer of Kiro's guild, Lemia, then appears and rushes at Godor with her daggers. She uses her quick slash skill, making Godor kneel on the ground. Yet it remains alive and lunges at Mium, who points upward and tells it to look above. Godor looks up to see a man descending upon it. Winty uses his signature meteor smash skill, causing a loud explosion that instantly kills Godor. The Kiro's guild stands undefeated. As the party celebrates, their leader Kim Hwinty declares that the boss is clear. Yoo Jae-han was also one of Kim Hwinty's party's founding members, or rather, he was. Moments later, he faces Hwinty and with a serious tone, calls his name to tell him that he has been expelled from the party. This shocks Ji-hyun, and he asks Hyun-tae why. Later, as Ji-hyun walks down the street on his way home, he checks his bank account and sees a balance of 10 million won. He can't believe that after working like a dog for 7 years, all he has is 10 million won, equivalent to $7,209.80 at the current exchange rate. He grows more infuriated as he recalls Yoonho teasingly asking what he has done for their party, Se-yoon, whom he just saved, telling him that a newbie could do what he does after a little learning. Miyazimple telling him that he is weak, and Hunti telling him that their party no longer needs him. He looks up at the dark, raining sky in anger, and questions why he stayed in Kiro's for so long. That night, Yoo Ji-han's story as a hero ends, but he knows he can't let it end like that. Reflecting on his unique skill that activates randomly in special situations, Ji-han sets out to find a new guild after being expelled from Kiro's. He searches tirelessly for a week without rest until he discovers the Fun Guild, thanks to his special skill. He sees that the chances of the Fun Guild growing into a giant guild if he joins are 99%, which surprises him. With this skill to see probabilities, Ji-han knows he can become more successful than those in Kiro's. Later, in a small room, someone is frustrated and complaining about the power going out, just as she was about to add water to her cup of ramen. Before she can eat, Ji-han barges into the room, shocking her. She shouts, asking who he is, but he simply replies that he is there to join the Fun Guild. The lady asks him what he means by joining the guild, but suddenly he collapses, causing her to panic and rush to his side, asking if he is okay. A moment later, Yoo Ji-han woke up and sat up immediately. The lady asked him if he was awake now and informed him that he had been unconscious for an hour. The lady, the guild master of the Fun Guild, Kim Shu, asked if she was right in assuming he was Yoo Ji-han. Jihan asked Shu how she knew his name. She showed him his identification and asked if he was from the Kiro's guild and why he wanted to join her guild after being in a giant one. Silently, he stood up and told her he would explain everything. After he finished explaining, she clapped her hands together and told him she understood his situation. However, with his experience, he could join any other guild, and she didn't understand why he was trying to join Fun. He couldn't answer, wondering if she would believe him if he told her the truth about his mysterious ability. Sensing his hesitation, she told him that if he couldn't talk about it, she would share something about herself first. She then removed her headset and admitted that she was the child of an elf and a human, making her a half-elf. This shocked him, knowing that after many incidents of invasions from different dimensions, the world discovered various species, with elves being one of the known ones. She explained that she had the blood of elves who once massacred humans, and asked him what he thought about it, and if he still wanted to join the Fun Guild. He looked at her, and she stared back, waiting for his answer. He then told her that she was trying to scare him, but her hands were shaking a lot, which surprised her. He then answered that he had nothing against elves. He had seen them a few times and found them not too different from humans. Discriminating against them for being a different species was something only bastards did. She covered her mouth in shock and disbelief, yet she managed to professionally tell him that she understood his situation and would positively review his application and contact him. He replied with an okay and thanked her. Suddenly the pluron on the table lit up, confusing her as she wondered why it was reacting. The crystal then floated to the stick and hovered above them, making Shu wonder if it was the spirit Sylph. It then moved closer to Jihan's head, and Shu wondered why it was moving when Sylph had been asleep for 12 years. The crystal then entered his head, shocking both of them and causing them to panic. It released a powerful force that burst out of the building and into the sky. Shu was knocked to the floor by the force, and when she saw him, she couldn't believe that Sylph had made a contract with a human. That day, the expelled hero, Yu Jihan, obtained a super rare class that only people in the world had, the Elementalist. There are those kinds of heroes, the ones who sign contracts with special beings and use their power. Ultra rare class, spiritualists and active spiritualists all over the world. Luca Harrison, a Miss Spiritualist, Maloshi Soakua, a Sea Spiritualist, and Abu Bakar, a Sand Spiritualist, are irregular existences, each possessing power equal to a guild. Now a new irregular existence was born when spiritualist Yu Jihan. A few minutes later, Jihan asks Shu if he has made a contract with a spirit, to which she replies, yes. She explains that he has made a contract with the wind spirit, Sylph, who is her deceased mother. He stutteringly tells her that if that is so, he has to give it back and suggests they break the contract. She tells him it is too late because once a spirit chooses its owner, it does not easily change unless the contractor is dead. He asks her what he should do, and she asks him what else there is to do. She reminds him that he passed the test and asks if he wants to run away now. He firmly replies no and tells her he has no intention of joining any other guild than Fun Guild, which touches and surprises her. She smiles and tells him that it is a smart choice. She then tells him that she understands and will gradually teach him how to use the spirit. However, she is surprised when he suggests they test it right away in the monster area. The monster area, or MA, refers to specific areas where monsters appear, ranging from Class V to Class 1. The closer one gets to Class 1, the more powerful the monsters. A moment later, they arrive outside the monster area in Bucheon, a Class V monster area, which Ji-hyun considers a good place to test his wind element. He notices Shu continuously looking around and asks her if something is wrong, startling her. She stutteringly admits that it is her first time in a monster area since her training at Hero Academy, which shocks him. He asks why she didn't mention it earlier, and she shyly admits that she was embarrassed because she is the guild leader. He tells her that he will take the lead for now and enters the monster area. Once inside, everything changes, and he asks her if they can determine what kind of monsters may appear. She replies yes and asks him to give her a moment. She checks her phone and tells him that the monsters that appear in Buchen are cockatrices. Shu then explained that according to the news, about 2 weeks ago, a truck carrying chicks overturned. Jihin grabs his sword and remarks that chicks sound like good training partners. He knows that from now on, they are on a battlefield, a place where blood could be shed and flesh torn at any time. With only 2 people in their party, he must be both the damage dealer and the tank. Suddenly, Shu feels something that surprises her and shouts to Jihen that she senses something in the nearby parking lot. They see a cactus eating someone. It's a class monster, and it spots them. Horrified, Jihen shouts to Shu to support him from the back. The cacatris jumps and launches its huge feet to grab him, but Jihen manages to block it with his sword and smiles. He signals to Shu, who begins chanting words with her wand. Once she finishes, she opens her eyes and unleashes wind arrows at the cacatris. The arrows successfully hit, and Jihan jumps away just in time to dodge her attack. Her arrows then explode, killing the cacatris instantly. Jihan tells her that it's great, and she proudly replies that she graduated at the top of her class from Hero Academy. While they are talking, a speedy cacatris appears behind a car. Shu, surprised, manages to warn Jihan to look behind him. He immediately looks back and activates his probability skill, seeing the danger in slow motion. Using his sampling skill, he searches for an evasion route. The system shows him that if he bends down, the evasion probability is 82%. He immediately bends down, dodging the cacatris's attack. He then uses his wind skill to increase his speed and swiftly decapitates the cacatris's without breaking a sweat. Shu, amazed, thinks it's impossible and wonders how he can handle Sylph so well already. She questions if he really went through the awakening just a day ago and what kind of monster he might be. To which she agreed. As he bent down, wondering if their testing was enough, he suddenly felt something and shouted to Shu to watch out. The monster was close to her and attempted to grab her, causing the ground to break. Fortunately, he managed to pull her away just in time. He asked if she was all right, and she stutteringly replied yes. Shu then asked why there was such a powerful monster in a level 5 monster area. He suggested that it might be a variant. Activating his probability skill, he saw that their chance of victory against it was only 12%. He asked if she could slow down the monster's movement, which shocked her. Nevertheless, she replied that she could, but only for a moment. Before she could finish, he rushed towards the monster, thinking that would be enough time. The monster jumped and flew at him, raising its claws to grab him as he got closer. Jaehyun swung his sword forward and shouted to Shu to do it now. She cast her slow wind on the monster, just as it was about to hit him. He dodged the attack and jumped above its head. Suddenly, Shu's slow wind disappeared, and the monster managed to open its mouth when he was very close. Still, he continued his attack, remembering how Hyun-D had called him useless. Angered, he trapped the monster and used his wind cutter, slashing it into pieces. As he landed on the ground, he was unaware that someone was watching him from the top of a building. The Earth Elementalist, Yoon Do-ha, was surprised to see that there was another elementalist in Korea besides himself. Meanwhile, in the Hway Song, Gyeonggi-do Class 2 monster area, the place was silent for a moment until it shook strongly because a monster emerged from underground. But it was not just one monster, there were many. Junho shouted at the monsters to come to him and then activated his aggro skill. The monsters launches at him, but he managed to block them with all his might. He shouted to Shan to hurry because he couldn't endure it for long. She replied that she knew and then activated her power, using her chain lightning to electrocute every monster around them, causing a loud explosion and easily killing them. Seon teasingly told Junho that she couldn't believe he would make a fuss over such small fries. He shouted back that he was almost caught in it too, to which she replied that was why she told him to lose weight. As she was telling Junho to prepare to withdraw, he noticed something surprising and immediately shouted that there was a monster behind her. She looked up and couldn't believe that one of them was still alive. She shouted to Jaehyun to cover her, but stopped in horror when she realized Jaehyun was no longer there and the monster was close to eating her alive. Unfortunately, someone cut the monster in half just in time, and she was relieved to see it was Hunaedi. A moment later, every monster in the area was dead. Sien complained about how tough it was as they caught their breath in exhaustion. Junho asked if there was a variant because it seemed so different from usual, but Sien replied that they weren't particularly strange. Hunaedi told them it was just an ordinary giant worm. He then clenched his fist tightly and hit the wall, asking why they were intimidated by such a monster. They were about to explain to Hunaedi when someone appeared behind them. They turned to Samiya, covered in blood, approaching them. She told them that Zone 2 processing was complete, but Hinty reminded her that he had definitely told her not to act on her own, and that there was no one to take care of her anymore. She replied that she knew. Junho then asked if they ended up like this because of Jihyun, but Hinty shouted that there was no way. Even though Jihyun was gone, he was just Jihyun, and they had no need for someone like him. Meanwhile, in the Class V monster area, Jihen stood in the center of the pieces of the variant Cacatris. Shu, looking at him from behind, couldn't believe he had taken down that giant variant by himself and wondered who on earth he was. Nearby, someone observed them and was surprised that they had taken down a variant on their own. The man then smiled, thinking he had found a gold mine. Shu approached Jihen and asked if he was hurt anywhere, but before he could answer, he collapsed to the ground. Worried, she lifted him and asked if he was all right. He then seriously called her name and told her they should farm the variant because its parts are rare and can sell for a high price, surprising her. She hit him, shouting that she was worried and thought something was wrong with him. She then asked if he agreed that it was a bit too much to write off as just farming, and he replied that it was definitely difficult for the two of them. At that moment, the man appeared behind them and offered his help. Cheerfully, he introduced himself as Zhang Saim from the monster processing company Mongtang. Shu asked what a monster processing company was, and he explained that they specialize in collecting monster byproducts. Jihen then seriously asked Saim what a businessman was doing in a monster area. Saim replied that their company was new, so he had to do at least that much to earn his keep, and he offered to process the Cacatris carcasses for them. Shu agreed, saying they should leave it to Saim, but Jihen felt something was off. Saim put on his suit and told them he would check the corpses first. He inspected the meat and praised their skillful cuts, saying the high-quality meat would definitely fetch a good price. Shu was happy to hear this and suggested they start by moving to a new office. Unbeknownst to them, Sam was thinking he would give them scraps while taking the real prize for himself, eyeing the purple crystal. Sam knew it was a magic crystal that only appears in variants and thought he could become rich with it. However, the ground around him suddenly rose up and trapped him inside the stone, causing them to panic. Sam begged for mercy and swore he would give back the magic crystal. Sweat poured down his face as he heard a man say that damn businessmen all have bad habits, and asked Sam if he dared to steal someone else's item. Shu recognized the man as Class 1 hero Yun Doha. Doha asked if the magic crystal was theirs, but Shu only asked what the Dice Guild was doing there. Jihen picked up the magic crystal and told Doha that it was the Fun Guild's loot, then asked if a Class 1 hero was going to rob them. Doha responded that, by the association's orders, he was supposed to catch that variant. Jihen replied that it was Doha's problem, not theirs, while using his probability skill. He realized the danger as his probability of victory was 0%. DOA then told him it looked like there was a misunderstanding. In an instant, Doha vanished and reappeared behind Jihan, slamming him to the ground hard. Doha then told Jihan that it was not a request, but rather a notice, calling him his junior elementalist. While they are arguing, Sam curses under his breath and wonders why he has to run into Doha here. Sam knows that Doha is the guild leader of one of Korea's top 5 guilds, Dice, and the only Earth elementalist in the world. Known as the transcendent hero Earth Dragon, Shu begs Doha to get away from Jihan. But Doha tells her that it's best for him to stay still, or else Jihan will die. She immediately puts her staff down, knowing that Doha is serious. However, Jihan's hand moves, and he tells Doha that he will die, not him. Then, he uses his Wind Knight skill, releasing a strong wind that throws Doha away. Doha manages to land on his feet, wondering how he was knocked back when Jihan was definitely stuck in the ground. Doha realizes that the moment he hit the ground, Jihan summoned the element to cancel the damage and counterattack, making Doha think that Jihan is an interesting brat. Jihan's probability skill warns him that continuous use of elemental magic will result in a 95% chance of his death. He knows he put all his remaining mana into that attack. But it still didn't damage Doha, making him realize what a Class 1 hero is like and that he is no match for Doha. As Doha walks closer, each step destroying the ground, he calls Jihan as Junior. and tells him that since they have exchanged introductory blows, they should start round 2. Before Doha can ask who will start first, Jaehan throws the magic crystal at Doha and raises both hands in the air, surrendering. Doha is surprised and shouts, asking how he could surrender just like that. Jaehan replies that his target was the magic crystal and that he has no intention of fighting anymore. He also asks if DOA is not going to violate the Declaration of Surrender, Article 38, Paragraph 9 of the Hero Act. This makes DOA panic and explain that he was just trying to have some fun. Suddenly, a helicopter appears above them, carrying members of the association, leaving them both confused and shocked. A lady in the helicopter shouts at DOA, asking how he could act out by himself like that. Doha replies that he finished his assignment, so there is no need to start nagging him the moment she arrives. Doha then walks towards the helicopter, telling Jaehan that they will decide on the victor later. He asks Jaehan for his name, to which he replies, "You Jaehan from the Fun Guild." Doha smiles and tells him to participate in the Class 4 promotion test because he will recommend him himself. This surprises Jaehan and he asks why, but Doha simply replies that he just felt like it. The helicopter then starts up and inside. Doha asks the lady if she heard what he said and orders her to write a letter of recommendation. The lady protests, asking how they can submit a letter of recommendation now when the test is in 2 days and their guild hasn't been verified yet. She stops in surprise when she sees that Doha is hurt and wonders how it is possible. Doha happily says that it was fun. Later, back in the Fun Guild office, Sam is kneeling on the floor, admitting that he was wrong. Jaehan furiously tells him that his apology is enough and that he should get ready for. Sam begs him to hear him out first and then tells them that he overheard their conversation about participating in the Class 4 promotion test. Sam explains that the test is in 2 days and suggests they start by changing their equipment. Ji-hyun asks what he means by changing their equipment. Sam responds that from the looks of it, Ji-hyun's sword has reached the end of its durability, and the same goes for the other equipment. If they take the test like this, it will be a disaster. He suggests they go to a workshop he knows to take care of it, and after that, they can beat him up if they still want to. They look at each other and agree, so Ji-hyun tells Sam to lead the way. A moment later, they arrive at the Monster Real Estate, 3rd floor, weapon workshop. Sam opens the door and looks around, but notices no one is there. Shu angrily asks Sam if this is another trick of his, but Sam replies that it is not. Someone then appears and asks who they are. The man tells them it is their day off today and asks what business they have there, making Ji-hyun realize it is a dwarven blacksmith. Black dwarves are a race made up of first-class blacksmiths, and they are the race that heroes most want to meet because dwarven weapons boast S-rank quality. Shu excitedly says that it is her first time seeing a dwarf, and Ji-hyun replies that it is his first time too, without noticing Sam escaping. Shu smiles at Sam, saying he isn't bad at all because she can't believe he would lead them to a workshop run by a dwarf. But then Shu notices that Sam is gone and wonders where he went. The man laughingly asks them what they mean by a dwarf and tells them that it is nonsense because he is a human. A native Korean no less, which shocks them both. Shu then shouts at the man, insisting he is lying because he is definitely a dwarf. Jaehyun demands to see the man's identification card, causing the man to laugh hard and call them crazy bastards. The man shows them his ID, and they are shocked to see it is real. The card identifies him as Ham Hoyle, 27 years old, but they wonder about his picture. They look at Hoyle and ask each other if it is identity theft, considering reporting him to the police. Shu snaps, realizing that Sam tricked them again, but Ji-hyun calmly tells her to call the police if she wants. Hoyle then notices something and asks to see Jaehan's sword, which confuses Jaehyun at first, but he hands it over. Hoyle is amazed by the marks on the sword. Hoyle then asks Ji-hyun if he is a wind elementalist, surprising him. Ji-hyun asks how he knows, and Hoyle explains that a first-class blacksmith can guess the user's occupation just by looking at the marks left on a weapon. Unfortunately, it seems that his sword couldn't withstand the element's power. Hoyle rushes to his workshop, telling Ji-hyun to give him a second because he has a weapon perfect for elementalists. He proudly shows Ji-hyun a sword that embraces the elements, called the Hoyle sword. Shu is disgusted that Hoyol named a sword after himself. Time passes quickly, and the day of the promotion test arrives. Jihan opens the door, and they both see a swarm of heroes inside waiting. Shu becomes anxious seeing the crowd, but Jihan remains silent, thinking that it has been a while since the last Class 4 test, and there were always many people back when he was in Kiros. The people laugh when they see him and whisper among themselves, asking if he is the guy who was expelled from Kiros. They laugh, saying they can't believe he showed up for a Class 4 test, and that if they were him, they would be too embarrassed to continue being a hero. Shu asks if they are talking about him, but Jihan tells her to let them be because people tend to badmouth others when they gather. He thinks it's a relief there aren't any rumors about what happened in Buchan, and decides to hide the fact that he is an elementalist for as long as possible because nothing good comes from attracting attention. Suddenly, a man orders everyone to be quiet and tells them he can't believe they are making such a fuss over a mere Class 4 test. The man tells them to come to their senses because they aren't special and are idiots who can't even catch up to the average. The Class 4 examiner, Bang Yoon-sik, then stops in front of Jihan and tells everyone, while looking at him, that they are substandard. Jaehyun curses Doha under his breath as he uses his probability skill on Yoon-sik and sees that his probability of passing the test is only 1%. Yoon-sik asks Jaehyun if he doesn't think so and calls him a parachute, making Jaehyun wonder if Doha really wrote him a letter of recommendation. 2 days earlier, the lady called Doha to report that she had sent the recommendation for the Class 4 promotion he mentioned last time. She mentioned that it was strange and asked why he had chosen Bang Yoon-sik as the examiner. Back at the Class 4 testing area, the heroes were running at full speed, heading towards Jurek together. Jurek remained calm, and when the heroes swung their swords at him simultaneously, he remarked that refusing to scrutinize the examiner first and pointing their swords as soon as the battle starts was a reckless strategy. Jurek then easily dodged the attacks and, with a single swing of his sword, defeated the 3 heroes, calling them dimwits. The heroes were down on the floor, prompting Jurek to report that Team 12 had failed. Other examiners were watching from above, and a man commented that Jurek might be taking it too far. The lady responded that she didn't know if anyone would ever pass. Class examiner Kim Han-sik remarked that the class copycats were all like this, and class examiner Oh Ha-in was frustrated because she didn't know what to report to the higher-ups. Class 4 examiner SEO Young-woo informed them that it was now the last party, and they all looked at the screen showing Jihan and Shu's pictures. Han-sik excitedly told his CO examiner that it must be them. Their guild master recommended them. Han-suk knew they would suffer a bit, because Junchik was a man with no flexibility whatsoever, but he was their dice party leader. The announcer welcomed Jihan and Shu to the Class 4 exam hall and explained that for the next 5 minutes, they would engage in a battle with the examiner. The requirement for promotion was to either completely defeat the examiner or receive acknowledgement from the examiner. Shu asked how they expected a Class 5 party to defeat the examiner, but Jihan remained silent, observing that Junchik had fought many parties yet remained clean without a single scratch. Jihan instructed Shu to support him from behind like during the monster area, to which she replied that she got it. He then drew his sword, telling her that it wouldn't be an easy fight. The announcer announced that the Class 4 examination had begun. Before Jihan could attack, Junchik kicked him with incredible speed. Fortunately, Jihan blocked it with his sword, shocked that Junchik attacked as soon as it. Jihan hit the wall from the force of Yunsik's attack. Shu looked back wordly, calling his name, but didn't notice Yunsik launching a fist at her face. The attack caused a mild explosion, but Yunsik was surprised to see his blow blocked. He peeked back and saw it was Jihan, realizing that the recommendation letter wasn't fake after all. Yunsik then kicked Shu away, turned around, and rushed at Jihan with speed. Yunsik attacked, and Jihan blocked it, but the force was so heavy that he couldn't believe Yunsik could exert such power even with a wooden sword. Knowing he needed to create distance, Jihan used his Wind Knight skill, throwing Jae-unsik away. Jae-unsik turned in the air and landed on his feet, wondering if Jihan was using wind-type magic and thinking Jihan was showing off an annoying talent. Suddenly, Jihan appeared behind Jae-unsik, ready to attack, shocking Jae-unsik, who immediately turned to face him. 2 days ago, the lady had asked Doha why he chose Jae-unsik as the examiner, saying that if he gave a recommendation letter, it would actually work against them, making it harder for the Fun Guild. Doha replied that there was no one but Yunsik because he was a swordsman who cut the wind. Yunsik then used his quick sword flow, quick blade devastating skill to counterattack Jihan. Jihan was shocked and bled from a swarm of slashes, falling to the floor and realizing his speed wasn't as fast as before. From the cockatrice up to Yun Doha, he wondered if the aftermath from back then was still present. He noticed that his new sword had been consuming a ridiculous amount of mana since earlier. Yunsik angrily asked if he got Doha's recommendation letter with just that much skill, and said he would eliminate him right there. But then Shu appeared behind Yunsik, aiming her staff and shouting at him to get off Jiham. She attacked Yunsik with her wind arrows and immediately jumped in front of Jiham. He was surprised to see her, but she told him to leave everything to her from that point on, knowing she couldn't always hide behind him forever and that she must step up. Yunsik asked if the fool could back away, but she replied that she was not a fool and was the Fun Guild master, Kim Shu. Yunsik was amazed when he realized she was an elf, but as he saw her running at him, he thought a mere magician daring to charge at a swordsman was foolish. Yunsik then swung his multiple blades at her while shouting that, as expected, she was a fool. Shu closed her eyes, knowing that elves can listen to the flow of mana. She easily dodged the multiple blades coming at her, then cast a spell on her staff and attacked Yunsik with her wind arrow again. Yunsik easily blocked it with his sword, and arrogantly asked if she thought it would work at a close distance. He was surprised when a magic circle appeared behind him. He blocked the arrow that came out of it and asked her if she had prepared only one strike. 2 more circles appeared behind him, and he blocked all the arrows coming at him. He couldn't believe a class 5 was doing multiple casting. He was even more surprised when he realized she had created 6-fold magic, and then realized it was 7-fold when a hand grabbed his feet to slow him down. Yunsik knew they had him when the arrows converged in his direction, causing a loud explosion when they hit. She started to think that even with Yunsik as the examiner, they could pass. But then she heard Yunsik behind her, saying it wasn't bad because closing the distance and trapping him in a square was a good move, but it was too slow. Yunsik pointed his wooden sword near her neck. She couldn't believe Yunsik had blocked a 7-fold magic. Yunsik teasingly asked Jihan when he was going to attack. Jihan replied that Yunsik would lose because of his arrogance. He realized that it wasn't that the sword was absorbing mana, he was just wasting mana. He noticed that compressing the minimum mana to the maximum and then releasing it could cause severe damage. He then released it at Yunsik using his wind blade. Meanwhile, in a room full of trophies, a man in a suit was looking out the window when his secretary entered to report on Hinty's party status for the day. The man thought for a moment and asked if Kangwoo was adjusting well. The secretary, puzzled, asked who Kangwoo was. Kiro's guildmaster Park Yong-seob replied that Kangwoo was the guy he sent to join Kim Hinty's party after sending away Jihan. The secretary explained that evaluations indicated Kangwoo was still adapting to the change and appeared somewhat unstable. Yong-seob confidently said that Hunti would stabilize it himself because Kangwoo was much more useful than Jihan. The secretary hesitantly added that there was something about Jihan. It said Jihan took the Class 4 promotion exam. This shocked Yong-seob, and he teasingly asked if that drag Jihan was really a participant, and if the brat who couldn't get a recommendation letter from anywhere was taking the promotion exam. The secretary replied that Jihan had received Yun Do-ha's recommendation letter, which shocked Yong-seop even more.